Hello, my friends. Unfortunately, today we witnessed a massive collapse of the front line in the Dnipropetrovsk region. So, let's start right away with this direction. Near the village of Pokrovsk in the Dnipropetrovsk region, the situation is simply catastrophic. The Russians managed to capture 5 settlements in just a few days. We lost Orystopil, Novooleksandrivka, Odradne, Danylivka, and Nechaivka. As you can see, this is a large-scale collapse. The breakthrough toward Orystopil reached 4 kilometers 900 meters, toward Novooleksandrivka 4 kilometers 200 meters, in the Odradne area 6 kilometers 300 meters, and toward Nechaivka 6 kilometers 100 meters. Friends, this means there are no more positional battles here for each village. The advances are already happening at an operational level. This means the Russians have reached the river and are most likely moving toward Zaporizhzhia, bypassing the defensive lines built near Orikhiv. From the current edge of the front line to Zaporizhzhia, the distance is now about 63 kilometers. Let's take a look at the defensive lines. Near the village of Nechaivka, there is a defensive line. If the Russians break through it, there will be open operational space ahead. All remaining defensive lines lie much farther south, which means a full-scale disaster could unfold. Overall, friends, share your thoughts about this in the comments. As for the Hulyaipole direction, the Russians are storming Zeleny High and carrying out shelling, but so far there are no new changes on the ground. The town is already almost semi-encircled. The logistical routes are under the control of the Russian FPV drones, and most likely, following their new tactics, the Russians will try to break through directly into Hulyaipole in the Zaporizhzhia direction. The Russians continue to assault Prymorske, but over the past day they have made no progress and the front line remains unchanged. In the Kherson direction, the Russians continue the attacks near the Antonivsky Bridge, but they have had no success and the front line remains stable. Now let's move on to the Novopavlivka area. Here, the Russians are assaulting Dachne and pushing past Zeleny High, but so far there have been no new changes over the past day. According to the latest reports, the Ukrainian forces continue eliminating Russians already inside Novopavlivka, and for now there have been no changes on this part of the front either. In the Pokrovsk direction, the Russians have managed to advance from two sides, tightening the passage toward Myrnohrad as much as possible. And of course, according to the official version, there is no encirclement. This is generally confirmed by the map, but the fact remains the corridor for entering and exiting the area is extremely narrow, just 2 kilometers and 100 meters, and it's heavily targeted by Russian fire. Also, today the Russians continue to assault the town of Rodinske. By the way, they also entered this town directly without attempting to encircle it. They are also pushing forward near the village of Rivne and along the western flank of Pokrovsk. All this activity on the flanks may simply be aimed at holding our forces in these areas. And since the Russians have more resources, they are also moving directly into the city itself. As for the Dobropillia direction, And there are problems here. The Russians are advancing in the area of Suvorove and pushing through near the Mayak settlement. But Ukrainian analysts are increasingly reporting that the Russians have indeed captured Volodymyrivka and are actively advancing toward Shahove. However, there is still no official confirmation of this, so we'll have to wait and see how the situation develops. Now, let's move on to the Kostiantynivka direction. Here, the Russians are assaulting Stupochki and pushing toward the outskirts of Kostiantynivka, where the Ukrainian forces continue eliminating them. The Russians are also advancing near the village of Klebanbyk, as well as Yablonivka and Trusen Yar, but there have been no new changes over the past day. In the Kramatorsk direction, the Russians continue assaulting Orikhiv-Vasilievka, but there have been no changes over the past day, and so far all attacks are being repelled. In the Siversk direction, the Russians are assaulting Dronivka and pushing into Siversk and the area near Fedorivka. And here too, we have had bad news. So the Ukrainian forces have already detected Russian forces in the center of Siversk. Situation in Siversk. The destruction of Russians' forward position in the southern part of the city has been confirmed. The Russians also ambushed a group of our soldiers, and those who survived were struck by an FPV drone. From the south, the Russians are actively infiltrating Siversk. Their tactic is the same as in Pokrovsk, small groups crawling forward under fire and setting up ambushes. But there is still no talk of them securing any solid positions. So, as we can see, the new Russian tactic is working. They're not trying to encircle the city, they're entering it directly, and unfortunately, this makes the capture happen even faster. They tried for a long time to advance by encirclement, but they failed. And as we understand, if Siversk is lost, and I'll remind you again that the Russians are already essentially in the city center, then only about 25 kilometers remain to Slavyansk, and this is a very troubling sign. In the Leman direction, the situation is difficult, so the Russians are assaulting Zarychne, Drobышevo, and Novomikhailivka. The Russians are hitting Leman with FPV drones, destroying everything in their path. Russia is allocating a maximum amount of resources to break all Ukrainian defensive positions in the city, and it looks like they will also try to push directly into Leman. So the situation here is bad, although there have been no changes along the front line over the past day. In the Borova direction, the Russians haven't carried out new assaults, and the situation remains stable. In the Kupiansk direction, the Russians are pushing forward in the area of Stepova Novoselivka and Peshane. However, inside Kupiansk itself, they still cannot advance any further. Ukrainian soldiers report that they haven't success there and are managing to break the Russian assaults. In the Velykyi Burluk direction, it has been confirmed that the Russians have captured Bologhivka, Odradne, and Dvorichansk. As we can see, the confirmation came a few days later. Geolocation maps had already showed this advance on the 17th, so 2 days ago. And it turns out that all of Russia's claims of successes in this area were true. Unfortunately, the front line here has shifted significantly by 7 kilometers and 200 meters at once. We have lost 3 more villages, and a rather serious buffer zone is forming for the Russians in this sector. But that's not all. In the Vovchansk area, it has been confirmed that the Russians have fully captured the village of Sinelnikove and the village of Tsehelne. Their breakthrough here reached 3 kilometers and 400 meters. This means two more villages have been lost, so the Russians also seized the southwestern part of Vovchansk, advancing another 3 kilometers and 300 meters. The northeastern part of the city has also come completely under their control with an additional advance of 2 kilometers and 200 meters. So the Russians are starting to gain momentum here, and the situation for us is getting worse. As we can see on most directions, the situation is collapsing, and the Russians are advancing without slowing down. And even in the Suma direction, the Russians continue their attacks and carry out up to 10 assaults per day. But here, all attacks are being repelled and there are no changes on the front line. Still, we can clearly see that on average, every week we lose around 100 square kilometers, sometimes more, sometimes less, but the loss of territory is constant. Unfortunately, stopping the Russian advance hasn't been possible. And we have to admit that Ukrainian losses are also high. The local authorities in Lviv announced that they are searching for land for a new cemetery. At the Lychakiv cemetery in Lviv, where fallen Ukrainian defenders are buried, only 20 plots remain. So the city is looking for a new area for burials, the city's administration reported. So overall, the situation is bad, but the war goes on. And that's all from me. So, as usual, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.